recent continuity in both theory and practice seems to encourage positive shifts in teachers' beliefs and practices. So here's what some have to say. I'll let you read this quote for yourselves. You can see here that reflecting on practice in light of theory and actually trying something out in the classroom leads to positive experiences of using tasks with the students these teachers are working with. How about this to say? So you can see some of the key themes coming into here. Engage, motivate, enjoy. And nevertheless, TBT was not seen as compatible or relevant for all learners. Third, she also had an interest in the student art to refer to over Facebook, or do some quizzing comprehension, or look at the charts. Chen, teacher Chinese, noted that TBT could be incompatible with certain students' theory of style and certain schools' culture. Sophia concluded that there isn't only one way of best practice in the classroom. And so he believed in the struggle exists between promoting innovation and seeing how innovation might work, and struggling with beliefs about what best practice should be, reaching an conclusion that a whole range of practices might be viable for the language learning classroom. Thirdly, I found that the experience of teaching was a barrier to TBT implementation. And here one is those more experienced teachers who are working in the same schools as these beginning teachers, and whose beliefs and practices had an influence on what these beginning teachers thought. Stephanie suggested that she was unable to use very much TBT because in her particular school, she mostly had to follow a textbook. Some suggested that teachers had doubts about how to implement TBT effectively. Freddie made the conclusion at the end of the program that he now thought the main obstacle to TBT was the teachers themselves. Practitioners' understanding of TBT was in his view key to its implementation in schools. And if there were more experienced teachers working in schools who were resisting the innovation, this was going to make a negative impact on being able to sustain the innovation. So he demonstrated it. What I was interested in here was whether positive beliefs and practices could be sustained. And the issue of interest was whether experiencing real classrooms makes a difference to take on the maintenance of TBT ideas. In other words, these teachers would be hired on 3 years old to work in schools. They would have grown familiar with their classes. They would theoretically not be so influenced by other teachers' opinions and beliefs as they began to grow and experience and become more adept and knowledgeable about what they were doing. First finding, there was evidence that positive shifts in teachers' beliefs actually headed to Orange at the time. But he said, I've gone into a department to offer for a sheep. That was actually hilarious. So I noted that these young people are having their languages and trying to show that. A lot of teaching time was needed to change the mindset of institutions, students, parents, and colleagues. This was to be a long-term endeavor. The ultimate conclusion was skepticism in practice, with TUT being seen as one of the languages for emotions messages. France's computed from her experiences that what she learned this year was the teaching of experimentation. Having considered some lessons, and also sure. She came to the conclusion for herself that these answers this instruction, and would teach her men, I think, as a place for that as well. She admitted that she hadn't even found the right ratio for her homework. It was something that she felt working on. And that's what he said. What do you think is professional development? And the other interesting thing is whether dedicated professional development will make a difference to take up university building ideas. So the two authors in this part of the study had undertaken an ITE in 2012, 5 years prior. During 2017, they became part of a one-year professional development program with the purpose of the UK. What difference did that actually make? So it's a one research for 2 years. And the people that they undertook in that year paralleled their original IT program with its dedicated focus on the theory and practice of TUT and required them to undertake a teaching as an ROI project, which is an action research type project where teachers try to examine their own classroom and reflect on what the differences in that might make. Both teachers decided to use technical direction throughout the town for the development of their tasks. Selecting something that could be used in a very traditional community role-play-based classroom and trying to embellish it to make it more task-like. So this is the problem. Initially, the school he was working was actually quite traditional, and because of that, studying using task-based ideas. He was indicating here that he was still interested in TUT, but found that the environmental context was slowly pushing away from it. He was becoming therefore more teacher-led, fit the approaches towards his study in his own context. So a key motivation that he was doing professional development was to teach me how to use task-based program. So he set an information. There are two versions of that. They had different information about particular locations, and students were given one of 3 different roles. Each activity student had to follow specific instructions to navigate around the town. They could only use Spanish, and they had been scenarios in English to find a particular location. So here you can see an example. What you can see is the power of this class. But it should be this. So how are those skills different shapes in those different practices? Inquiring and undertaking help you to refocus on a relative approach. However, it's still considered it was very difficult to teach task-based. In order to keep the difficulties on schools, they know that the theory or the ideas of the task at the end of the day they have exams that need to be completed. And that you found was problematic, especially those exams where one has a very task-based orientation. We get task-based in the summer, but at the end of the day, alone. The students initially went through lessons each to create a host of lessons, and then the answers they were looking at made a way out that was similar to standard. And such a discussion is used where each case should be. Then students were in this. One student was volunteers, another was local. See now. The hearing was seen on the emotional dimension of the particular activity that had been set up. So when we look at the wide cases, how the limited abilities emerge. Comparing between 2012 and 2015, we can draw some conclusions about the issue of education. For instance, there's a lot of primary institutions bring with them into a teacher education program. Something that's okay to be focused on. She suggested that we would like to try something new and different and motivating. Grace thought that the idea was being created. This was because of the challenge that was teaching. It really helped us think about what the primaries were and the challenge about considering something different or completely new. Frank suggested that if they hadn't been introduced to that program, they'd still be set in front of the class doing the traditional practice production. Because we didn't notice this. If we didn't know about it, we wouldn't do it. Nevertheless, in the way the realities of this classroom, community was not set to be one approach which should be able to help all others. Frank noted that he heard about it. Frank thought he noted as well as speaking. But what teachers should have to create an engaged and learning environment for students. However, he integrated positive ideas with other teacher elements. He suggested that if we really want to get that work in any classroom, we're going to need at least 10 years to teach us how a teacher's approach being learned to teach children. This has to be seen as an long-term project. So far as we know in the world, a few great schools always say, yes, we'll go. What about 2012 to 2017? With these teachers, we have chosen to look at professional development some 5 years after initial education and doing. So far as this is in 2015, I do whatever works for my students. So if the traditional approach will work, that's what we choose. So he was introduced to the experience in 2012. He found that over several years, he was moderating that and introducing more traditional elements. By 2017, he still acknowledged it was very good. However, he could see the shift in his own practices. And he jumped to fast focus based on the professional development of consistency. So in 2017, he helped him to focus on a relative approach. He suggests that simple on the basis that I'm not necessarily knowledge, however simple. As he explained to his own students, I already pushes you, but I'm not wanting to make a class. Particularly when these are more traditional practices. Driven beyond by accountability created by the assessment system, that he saw as sometimes working against humility. And that was a tension that he felt he did nothing about. Something that I got such a recognize that a lot of good groundwork had been laid at the end of that year-long program. Such that by the end of 2012, everyone knew the theory really well because the whole year had been done. But the core of the test the traditional teaching evolution. And that's what we need. In other words, those first few years of being a teacher where you're growing into your own expertise are perhaps a time when you need to rely more on a more structured approach. But by the end of the first 50 years of teaching, you say that you have more time to reflect on those practices and change them. He was now by this stage of his career a bit more relaxed in teaching. That he saw as a great opportunity to actually think about his teaching while he was at the and after so long, basically shifted him. And probably the main thing he observed was the less teacher-centered. Daily students would be more tenderly in their own control of the task. Such a now become more widely influenced teaching, and even treated like somewhat popular. So for him, the painting was an opportunity to consolidate what he did, to internalize what and thereby improve his practice. He could never try to accomplish this with a more deliberate way. So, how do they see this installation sustainable or wisdom? 24 findings suggest that how these can be challenged and positive understandings formed by virtue of taking part in an ICU program that focuses on communication. However, your experienced colleagues try to think about these educational understandings and listen to the future and improve practice as a concern. However, natural resources magnifying alongside continuing practices for colleagues, making them demonstrated. The 27 ones suggest that one main focus in the activity for those who require knowledge and understanding was significantly embedding those principles in teachers' ongoing. However, teachers still seem to be having challenges that we know exist. So many colleagues believe to promote and emulate the education findings there. I think initiatives will be dedicated to focus and maintain the education can be successful in challenging and changing practices in a way that can be sustained. Dedicated resources that reinforce people to support what teachers are helping to do. Focus on that offers opportunities for teachers to experiment with tasks and practical, particularly with support prior evaluation. If teachers are going to be cultivating innovation structures for functions, they need to be exposed to research they need an opportunity to try out the innovations themselves. They need space to reflect on the practice of life doing research, and they're respected for what works and what doesn't work in education seriously. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Martin East is now live for the question and answer session. If anyone has any questions, you can ask. Dr. Martin East, welcome.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to answer any questions on my video presentation. If anybody has anything they'd like to say.
Hello, Dr. Martin. Hope you're doing well. So my question is, you just told your presentation the concepts of be all and end all. So how this phenomena relates to pedagogy for the prospective teachers?
Could you just repeat that question, please? I didn't quite hear it.
Yeah. So in your presentation, you elaborated one point, be all and end all. Be all and end all. How this concept can be related to the pedagogy for the prospective teachers?
Okay, I think what I was really saying in my presentation was that translate language teaching can sometimes be seen as the ultimate goal of what we should be doing in classrooms. And I think what I was trying to challenge was that in fact that isn't the case. And that translate language teaching is perhaps one of a range of different approaches that we should be taking in the classroom.
Well, thank you very much for this answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Is there any other question? There is another question, sir. Thank you.
Hi, Martin. How are you?
Hi there. I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you in this new environment.
Thank you very much for the talk. Very wonderful. I just want to clear my understanding about the Pakistani context where we have very tight sort of assessment and a kind of syllabi. So here, when the teacher are asked to change pedagogy or the style of teaching, it's become very difficult for them to take any such sort of steps. So, how do you see? I mean, we can bring such pedagogical changes here in second language. Thank you.
I think the thing for me is to start with the task itself. So if you can actually think about how the task might work and measure the task against the theoretical framework, if it's possible to introduce tasks within a more structured framework, that's a beginning with the process. And once teachers begin to see how tasks work in practice, that might then encourage them to be able to increase their use of tasks within a structured environment. I don't think it's particularly easy to introduce tasks within a very regimented or a particular syllabus that dictates what should be going on in the classroom, but it's the task that we need to start from. And so by introducing the task gradually, step by step, that can be a beginning to opening up what can happen in the classroom.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the audience? I think there is no other question. Thank you so much, Dr. Martin, for your contribution. Would you like to say something?
Well, thank you for this opportunity to be with you at least virtually in this environment. I hope the rest of the conference goes well for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to call Dr. Tariq Rahman, Dean of School of Education at Beacon House National University, Lahore, Pakistan. Dr. Tariq Rahman is an academic and a highly published scholar in the field of linguistics, history, and social linguistics. He is the recipient of the Humboldt Research Award and a higher doctorate from the University of Sheffield. In recognition of his scholarly work in research, the Government of Pakistan has awarded him Presidential Prize for Performance and Satire in Class. The topic of his keynote address is Linguistic History as an Emerging Discipline. Please give him a huge round of applause. Dr. Merit and Ma is facing some connectivity issues, so they will be shortly. So kindly wait.
You want me to start?
Yes, sir. Welcome. You are ready.
Thank you very much. Shall I start? Shall I begin?
Yes, sir.
Have you got my slides there? Okay, you have my slides. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't see them yet, but I will start.
I'm saying that can you share the slides?
I've already done that.
Alright, I can't see those slides. Kindly share your screen with us and then we will use it.
Anyway, I'll start anyway, even if you cannot see my slides. So, alright. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to speak on
Dr. Rajesh Mark, we are unable to hear
I
you. There is some.
not as a linguist, not as a historical linguist, but as a sociolinguistic historian. And it has been misunderstood as historical. So I have said that that doesn't matter. Historical linguistics requires a knowledge of linguistics. You need a knowledge of phonological groups, you need a knowledge of phonetics, you need a knowledge of syntax, you need a knowledge of morphemic groups, morphology, pragmatics also, and so on. And for instance, if you want to record the Great War change which took place in England, you've got to know about bonds, you've got to know how to change, etc. And you've got to record that. You've got to understand archaeology. I think you need to be a linguist here in order to record such kind of changes. For what the kind of work which I mostly did, and other work also, but this kind of work, which I call social history or history, doesn't require those kind of sources. What are the sources needed here? The sources we need are historical sources. That means, like I want to give examples from my own work here because that is the kind of work I am looking at the moment. I will come in a moment to the kind of work which preceded that, which is going on even now. There was a tradition of history of language writing earlier. I'll come back to the moment. So when I began writing, my research was on the subject for language markets in Pakistan. And we looked at the standard policies at the diplomacy in India, at the language movement, the city language movement, and so on. What were the sources? The sources didn't require me to know linguistics. Otherwise, some knowledge of it, but it did really require me to know linguistics about, something about syntax or something about phonetics and phonology. What I required was being able to read languages in which the sources of this historical source of this located. For instance, for the Pakistani movement, I learned to read for the Bengali language movement, I couldn't actually learn Bengali, but I went there and I got sources translated from Bengali to me. For the Hindi or Urdu controversy, I left the Gujarati script in which the Hindi sources are written. So then of course the English sources that would be anyway and the Urdu sources too. But for the others, I have a legal translation or at the actual language, which is just the tool of a historian. So I require historian in order to do this. In short, this is the kind of work which can be done by a historian. Then we come to my second book, which is on language learning modes in Southeast Asia. It's called Language, Technology, and Power, and it is actually about the way the history of language learning has took place in India. And the perspective is that there is a kind of market, there is the one, there is the people who teach, there is the demand side, which is the learning side, and there is the supply side, teaching side. But the important thing is where you get the sources. The sources are historical. So one looks at books of history, those books are in Russian, but luckily, whether some of them are translated in English, and also. So I learned from there and from other sources how Arabic was learned, how Persian was learned, etc. What was the market for them, what were the jobs available for them, how Urdu was learned, introduced for the first time at the British Institute actually in India. And also taught by poets, but that was from poets, so that was specialized. Otherwise, Urdu was introduced as was English by the British in India. And then the learning of languages like Punjabi and Sindhi and so the study was also considered. For my third book, which is on the same subject, it's called a social and political history. So once again, the sources were the same. This time I learned the Persian, not very well, but just enough to get by. And they were, of course, translations. And I was much better in my then language than before. So I went to India, and I also went to other places because the sources for this book were scattered all over the place, and they were like the sources for the other books. They were in the library, which was the British Library. So we filed the British officers, memoranda by British officers, letters written by British officers about that language policy were all there. And they were also in the archives of India, and there also, and Hyderabad and Islamabad, Hyderabad's letters, sources and orders about making Urdu into the Persian state language were there, and some archives for, once again, history. In short, what I've been doing is something which historians can do. You don't have to be a linguist. And that is why I have been reluctant to call myself a linguist. I only got an MPhil degree in linguistics, not a PhD. So I keep telling my students that I should really not, be called a linguist, not a linguist scholar. A linguist scholar is one who, after a PhD, works for that publishes in microlinguistics and, publishes on syntax and chronology and phonetics and so on and so forth. And have to do social linguistics in this, but definitely not. Sorry, I didn't say what definitely not. The idea is that historians do not mean that of historians, because they feel that somebody who calls himself a historian must have a degree in what they call which by which they interpret history of kings and prime ministers and so on. So what that is what they call history. So this is a subject which is not standing. Because really it is not spoken by anyone. You don't have to talk in any university also. And but I have to teach other things in order to stay afloat. I think it's not a subject which is given in the right equal place. There are places where it is. In Pakistan it is not. I'm talking about Pakistan at the moment, it's not. But elsewhere too. I mean, I was beginning a book called Empires of the World, in which the author, Nicholas Oscar, had identified himself and social linguist. When I wrote in my review that this is not really a work on social linguistics or applied linguistics or teaching of languages, etc. It's not. It is history. And because of it's simply that there is no use for it. And so people then find themselves as social linguistic historians, have to find a job, and they put themselves in the category of linguists or applied linguists, so on and so forth. This is really a people who, there were two kinds of course, literature was the major one, poetry, etc. That was the scholarship of that. And there were people who were themselves the historians of language, I know about it, and that's happened. Punjab movement, Shirani's book, after that Shirani's book, Chenmay, and so on. All these books trace the language, the origin of most of them for nationalistic reasons or because of their affiliation with the Muslim, etc., trace them for religious or nationalistic bias. But the two sales were from language, from literature, not from what I would call language. They didn't know it. They didn't know about consonants and, they didn't know about phonetics, phonology, and so on and so forth. Those things they didn't. All they knew was they knew the literary sources. And they would trace the Wikipedia, and they would trace out words. So it was the 19th century comparative variation.
Recording in progress.
This was 19th century phonology. This tradition was there. I mean, that is the one which gave rise to the idea of there being different language families and so on. That is the tradition which had been imported, so to speak, to India, and that is what most of the books were about. There was this imperative of claiming especially Urdu, as being born from Punjabi, from Saraiki, from Hindko, from Sindhi, and so on and so forth. That was the nationalistic bias. But the methodology was looking at literature and comparing words. That was it. Something which could be done by people who were not trained in linguistics proper, by which I mean, of course, microlinguistics again. These people were all trained in Urdu literature, not even in history, but they used historical tools. That tradition was there. I've written about it in some detail in another book, but the one which speaking with sense of embarrassment, I began, was followed by Sabia Mansoor, who was a PhD student, and she took her guidance from me and from her supervisor in England, the University of Reading. I was the so to speak, supervisor, the second supervisor, the local supervisor here. And she wrote on the role of English in higher education. Sabia Mansoor later on encouraged a number of MPhil students to work with her. So there are some students who have done work on language policy with her, especially with reference to English. A number of other people have also worked on this. They've generally worked on schools and the medium of instruction in schools, which actually falls under the head of education linguistics. All of them are classified as linguists, which is fine if they want to be classified as linguists. But what I would suggest is that perhaps younger people can take up the mantle, so to speak, and give a niche to this subject in this country. I know that very often they work on subjects close to it, but that falls because most of that work then concerns medium of instruction, etc. And there is a niche for that. That is, it's called education linguistics. But normally they put it under education as such. So they work on education. They have degrees in education. They get their masters and MPhils and PhDs in education, and their work falls under that. Dr. Tayyiba Tamim is one such person. She did her PhD from Cambridge, and that is actually on language and education, although her degree says education only, but it's actually on language and education. So it's outside, it has gone out of the field of language, and it comes under the label of our discipline, which is not language, which is education. Dr. Shahid Siddiqui is another person who works on language in education, but then his PhD and the field he formally associates with is education. Those again are fields which could come under some head, and that would be, as I said before, education linguistics. So just like social linguistic history, there could be a separate field in Pakistan on education linguistics. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened either. Language policy, I have classified that also under history. But my book, Language and Politics in Pakistan, Language Planning and Politics, does belong to a field which is separated in many countries, many universities, and that is called language politics. You have to know political science in that, you have to know history in that, and then you can work on this field. Language policy, Bernard Spolsky has written a lot on language policy. In Israel, he told me that there is a recognition of a separate field on language policy. We don't have this language policy here in Pakistan. So perhaps my parting words to you would be that we should recognize these new fields, these fields which are new here but have been established elsewhere. And there are people who are working on them. I'm not talking about myself. I'm no longer working on them. I'm actually out. I'm working on something else. And in any case, my career is ending. So this is for younger people, those who have something to say, that they shouldn't restrict themselves to labels which exist, but create new labels, because there are fields. Unfortunately, they are labeled wrongly, they are classified wrongly. They don't get students, they don't get funding, they don't get departments, but that ought to happen. In the end, I'd like to thank those who organized this conference for inviting me. I had submitted to them very humbly that I have said what I had to say. I have written what I have to written in the field of language and the field of linguistic history. I have really nothing further to say, nothing further to add. But if you really want me to come, I'll speak something on a personal note, which is what I've done. It is a plea for expanding your horizon, academic horizon. It's a plea for adding, for those who run universities, for those who give out money, etc., not to restrict themselves to fields to which they have been restricted earlier, but to expand. That's all I have to say. If anyone wants to ask questions, most welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tariq Rahman, for your contribution. Are there any questions from the audiences?
You're not very clear. Say it again, please.
Sir, I am asking the audience for the questions. If they have any questions, can they ask you?
Yes, if you have any questions, by all means, yes.
All right. There is one question, sir.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Rahman is here.
Assalamu alaikum,
Sir, how can we differentiate historic linguistic from the other history when there is less difference in culture and language and rest of the things. So since there is a strong relationship between language and culture, and when we say history, that already means the history of culture and language as well. So how can we say that it is a separate discipline? Thank you.
Yes, okay. The sources for both tend to be the same, but the emphasis is different. I mean, if you look at the searchlight, the emphasis you put on your research questions. Your research questions in social history, cultural history, and economic history are different. They are, I mean, economic history, you've got to look at how people actually lived. What was the system of taxation? What was the standard of living? What is how much did they get for food, for housing, for this and that, etc.? That's economic history. If you look at cultural history, the cultural history is too wide a term. You've got to look at what kind of culture. There is in culture, you have many things. You have music, for instance. You have cuisine, for instance. You have sartorial history, dress, and how it changed. Your searchlight is on that. For the linguistic history, your searchlight would be on the languages, the policies which were there in vogue, the policies which people had in their homes, etc. That is at the micro level about using the language. So it is at the macro level of the state's use of a language and the micro level of people's use of a language, which languages, what was their ideology about language, which language they considered superior, which they considered inferior, which gave them power and which did not give them power. All those things, when you look at, you'll be looking at the sources about language mostly. Of course, you will add a little bit about the culture, but you will look mostly about the sources about language. So it depends a lot, historical sources for all, but the emphasis is going to be different. The searchlight you're going to throw from your mind onto the research question, the research questions which you're going to ask, they're going to be different. For instance, the research question which I asked from Hindi to Urdu is, what happened when Urdu became the language of education? Who got jobs? Which community stood to gain? Those were questions. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other question from the audience?
Okay, thank you very much indeed. It was a pleasure to be with you. And I'd like to thank once again the people, everyone who invited me, especially Mr. Al-Jabin. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to invite our next guest speaker, Dr. Habibullah Pathan, Director and Associate Professor at English Language and Development Center, Mehran University, Jamshoro. The topic of his keynote address is Challenges and Opportunities of Online Education. He is with us today. Kindly give him a huge round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you very much, first of all, Riphah University, Dr. Islam, Zadi Saab, and team members for inviting me over to this wonderful experience, a wonderful conference. Let me read the title, first, the Riphah International Conference on Language, Literature, and Culture. So before I sat on the arguments about the online teaching and learning, since we are in this particular situation, and let me also argue that post-COVID situations have many challenges, but there were major opportunities that have come for Pakistan. And I think it's high time for Pakistan to inculcate that particular changes brought about by the COVID situation so that we can compete with the world. And I will be talking different phases of past and present, but to set the tone of the talk, since I'm getting help from Guy here, to show you a video, which I normally play in different conferences, what is happening around the world. Let's have a feel, even before the COVID and after, what are the pressing changes that happen as a part of COVID. So let me play this video. Let's watch it for a minute.
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected, where everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, there's only one space left to innovate in: you. Right now, you are a central point in the raging tornado of change fueled by digitization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation. Well, the list goes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Think about self-driving cars or computers that can learn and think. The way we work will never be the same. The skills we need will be dramatically different. Winning or losing are now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response? How will you discover new opportunities in one of the most transformational times in human history? Are you driving change, or are you being driven by it? Disruption has become the new normal. With change, it's always gradually, then suddenly, well, things really have stopped happening gradually. This change is exponential. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is now wired and intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, farms, even our bodies will be wired with sensors and will talk to each other. These game changers are also combinatorial. They amplify each other, creating a perfect storm of change. Quantum computing fuels big data. The Internet of Things fuels artificial intelligence and deep learning, which fuels robotics. However, anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. Human-only traits such as creativity, imagination, intuition, emotion, and ethics will be even more important in the future, because machines are very good at simulating, but not at being. Yes, robots and software will do some of our work, but this will allow us to focus on things that cannot be automated. To imagine change squared, you've got to start engaging more with what might be, not just with what is. Immerse yourself in the immediate future, 5 to 7 years out from today. We need to go beyond technology and data to reach human insights and wisdom. Technology represents the how of change, but humans represent the why. The future is about holistic business model. The opportunity is to be liquid, to learn just in time, not just in case, not single improvements, but complete transformations, not individual systems, but new ecosystems. Humanity is where true and lasting value is created. We will engage, relate, and buy things because of the experiences they provide, because of their transformative power. The future doesn't just happen, the future gets happened. The new way to work is to embrace technology, but not to become it. The future is in technology, yet the bigger future lies in transcending it. Let's live and lead from here.
Okay, so I hope I just set a tone for the talk, what is actually happening in the 21st century. There's the outline. I'll be talking a bit about the past and present. Past means what happened pre-COVID and what are some of the mitigation that we are doing post-COVID situation. I'll be specifically talking about the challenges faced at higher education level, especially in Pakistan. But I'll be quoting a survey recently conducted by UNESCO and more than 120 countries involving a larger number of samplings. So it's very good to have insights from different universities in the different countries. What is Pakistan's case? Where do we go from here? And then what are the opportunities for Pakistan from now and onwards? It's a very important slide, and this is the term that you will see not as a language expert, but as a human being, a professional in any field. You will feel this particular acronym all across, which is what will tell you exactly about the 21st century, which is called VUCA. V is volatility, U is uncertainty, C is complexity, and A is ambiguity. And you will see in everything, and the video that you saw, you also saw that we are talking about destruction. Destruction is the future. So everything is upside down and everything has novelty. So you need to have reimagined future, reimagined sense for teaching, learning, and living a life. What are the future trends? So I'm going to talk about a bit, let's say 10 years back, and what are the statistics for the future. And remember, let me also quote here one argument. We always work or revolve around economic model. World will tell you where are we heading in coming 10, 15 years. And they will tell you with the numbers. And how would you get these numbers? Where the money is being injected and where the world is heading. I mean, it's not a new figure. I'll also show you some of the surveys conducted worldwide about the EdTech education. But remember, by 2019, even when we didn't even know about the COVID situation, educational technologies companies were investing heavily in through software, through online learning systems, LMS, right, and other kind of software companies. They started injecting money, and the investment was by 2019 was $18 billion, which is actually a very huge amount of money. Then by 2025, they are projecting that it's going to be more than 20 billion, even beyond that. So financial models determine future direction of all fields, including education. And remember, once you see this, world is not going to go back to the physical mode anymore. It could be okay. So it's going to be really hybrid, or it has to be an online, and it has to be but physical. I mean, Pakistan is an opportunity. I'll talk about when I'm talking about the opportunities. See the numbers and then plan the learning, teaching accordingly. This is very interesting. When I say $16 billion investment done, right? And also see who are the major countries investing, especially those in the corridors of power. Now, recently we've seen China has crossed the USA in accumulation of wealth. Now it's one of the wealthiest countries of the world. I think recently, last week, statistics, and the US definitely followed by that. That was leading at some point. They're investing heavily in China, I think, leading at this stage, and a huge percentage of investment in educational technology, including all languages and all teaching learning system, is from China, followed by USA. And then we also see the rest of the world that we are also part of. And we've got a huge opportunity of investment in that particular case. Again, this is interesting. If we talk about the educational technology, the investment into higher education, again, is beyond 16%. And people in other countries are also investing, like in K-12, right? And again, if you see very specifically what is happening, we are investing in advanced technology, in online learning, in tutoring, in digital content. So major money is going to higher education, to K-12 education, which means, I hope in audience, it's about school, about the colleges, the primary, secondary education. So these are some of the indicators which actually tell you where the money is being invested in education and technology. Is online education or virtual platform new phenomenon, or this happened just because of the COVID situation in the country, or it existed into the past? There's a survey, a wonderful study recently completed in 2021 involving more than 100, I think, more than 100 countries, and we had a huge number of participants in that. And you can find out and share the link after my talk. So people were asked, previous existence of the technological platform for the distance education, only 11% people globally said that, okay, it didn't exist, which is very tiny percentage. Not very significant amount of people saying that it didn't exist. 8% or said, yes, created expressively as a response to the crisis, not, but we are preparing. That's at the planning phase. But a bit, the more significant thing is 80% that you see, yes, even before the crisis. That means it's not really the direct outcome of the COVID situation, but actually it was the case worldwide or globally, and not in the countries like Pakistan. However, we had a couple of the universities already offering distance on online education, like Dr. Umar Farooq is here working, I think he worked at AIOU or Comstats University in Islamabad. They had a section of that particular part, and virtual university, and I think a couple of other universities in the country offered this particular platform, but this existed into the past. So let's have an idea, it's not direct outcome of the COVID situation because of the 88%, which is very high percentage of the responses. So when you have such kind of responses in Pakistan and worldwide, what is going to be the next direction? So for example, if I say language learning and teaching or education online or virtual education, it needs to have a revived goal, which should not be goal, but now it has to be a vision. But remember the video that I showed you, told you about something which cannot be digitized, not everything can be IT based. So wisdom still or creativity have still kind of a lot of room. So we need to have a specific vision that could lead us to, survive into 21st century post-COVID situation. Let us understand before we say it should be a vision or it should be a goal, what exactly is the difference between the two, because normally we confuse. And remember, once our ideas are not clear about our future direction, it's impossible to be part of that particular change. So when you say something is my goal, which is abstract cognitive plan for the future, for example, I want to achieve this particular task, I want to achieve this particular degree, I want to achieve this particular kind of goal. But what is vision? When you say it's not a goal, it's a vision, then it's a goal plus an accompanying sensory element. Now, what is a sensory image of what it would look like when goal has been achieved? That is what you need to attach when you now think about the future. I can give you one more example that would technically clarify more to it, and I have shared this slide a couple of times so that we can easily understand goal and vision. This was an activity done, human brain. So a participant asked to see an apple, and one participant was not shown an apple and asked to imagine an apple. So they see the activity in human brain. Either there's no difference, or even when you have a vision of shown an image and asked to imagine larger human brain. Either there's no difference. So remember, when you involve imagery, vision of shown image, imagine larger, brain work faster, or either there's no difference. So once your brain works faster, remember you can have multiple solutions, even for future work. Either there's no difference. So once you went from this faster, what I'm going to say that everything that we have as a vision, knowledge of we know exactly where are we heading, everything that we have as a vision, knowledge of why technology is exactly where are we heading, why it's important, everything that we see in everyday use. This is our 60 technology reality. 1 second, I'm not talking about 1 hour, I'm talking about 60 seconds. One, this is reality of the overall we face. I think one might have been received the slides I can this is here that have been lost there. answers from certain nature going out. And they have already different global changes and LMS system and Coursera and probably figures will give you a lot of positive signs of using technology and education. Because the world is an opportunity for Pakistan. I mean, I'm learning two of my studies. One is already published at the Boston University in Economics Review.
to promote the ethical guidelines, to make the ethical guidelines, to prepare them if they do not exist, or to use them from somebody else. We can borrow, we can adapt, we can adopt, and this is the university's responsibility. Ethics involve respect for the individual, for the dignity, human dignity, and that involves privacy. When you are conducting research, we often mention when introduce किए और पता है वो ये जवाब दिया वो इतना बड़ा प्रोफेसर बनता है तो मैं रिसर्च के लिए उनके पास गई उन्होंने तो ये कहा no. So privacy of the participants, that's very important. You know, that is the reason because we're not able to keep the things confidential. हम बड़े ओपन लोग हैं, हम बड़े पब्लिक कल्चर हैं, हर चीज़ ओपन, हर चीज़ पब्लिक में बात करते हैं। इवन जैसे अगर कोई जैसे मैंने पब्लिक में बात की है कि मेरे पास नोटिस आए और लोगों ने इस किस्म की पब्लिकेशन की, अगर मैं साथ में नाम भी दे दूँ कि किसका था या किस यूनिवर्सिटी से था, तो दैट विल बी वेरी अनएथिकल। अगर मैंने एजीसी की लेट्स एग्जाम proposals या postdoc या doctoral students evaluation scheme किसी भी चीज
and if I share my opinion about those proposals, even that is unethical. I mean, just समझते हैं कि नहीं ये those proposals professor ने evaluate किया, उसने ये नहीं किया, so privacy of the participants of the research is very important. Their integrity and freedom and rights of if it's a graduate or if it is your research or to be obviously there are more than one people especially the kind of research
So, next is it's our duty to inform. As researchers, we have to give information about the field of research, the purpose of research. आपके पास अक्सर आते आपको मोबाइल पे बुला रहे हैं मैं सर्वे कर रहा हूँ आप उसको फिल कर आपके मोबाइल में नहीं कर या somebody asks you कि आपकी आज क्लास की रिकॉर्डिंग करनी है वीडियो रिकॉर्डिंग करनी है आज आपका thesis डिफेंस है उसकी रिकॉर्डिंग करनी है and people don't allow बहुत सारे लोग हमारे अपने टीचर्स बहुत सारे टीचर्स आप लोगों की they are shy to give their data to somebody for research और उसकी वजह ये होती है कि we not able to inform those participants that why do we need that recording, why do we need that data, why do we need your contribution and how are you going to use it और हम कहाँ करें हम उसका कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं लेते हम कह देते हैं कि क्वेश्चन आंसर करो ये रिकॉर्डिंग करनी है we don't get the concept कॉन्सेप्ट के लिए अब बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं काबिलिटी में if you are working on national language how people speak naturally then will have to record the conversations in a natural setting और वहाँ पे आप लोगों को
पहले से नहीं बता सकते natural recording because if you do so then that will not be natural conversation पहले से नहीं बता सकते because that's the problem because if you do so well then you will have to find out the solution for that either you record first and inform the participants afterwards get the chance. If somebody says, I don't want to buy the card, तो आप उसको edit करें, आप उसको delete करें, delete that card, don't use that card. ये कहना कि जी मैं एक छोटा सा mic यहाँ the camera, nobody would know. That's highly unethical.
Research also, and your position as a researcher also. And then confidentiality, that's very important. When you use that data, उसको पहले consent देना है, and then you have to keep the confidentiality also. ये नहीं कि सबको आप कहानी सुनाएं कि मैं रिकॉर्डिंग कर रहा था, तो ये हुआ, उसमें तो प्रोफेसर साहिबा ने ये कहा, डॉक्टर साहब ने ये कहा. ठीक है, so that confidentiality is very important. Secondly, limit the reuse. When you get the data, do you become the owner of that data? Can you reuse it? Can you reuse it? Can you use it after 5 years? Can you use it after 10 years? आपने टीवी पे देखा, these days foreign clips निकालते दिखाते हैं, लेकिन 2005 में आपने तो ये कहा था, 2018 में आपने ये कहा था. अगर तो वो पब्लिक स्पीचेस हैं, पब्लिक ने कहा था that it's different. But if you have recorded data, if you have questionnaires, are you going to use it? आज जो बात करें कि in a different perspective देखिए, आज things so different. After 10 years, I might be thinking in a different manner. And if you are using the same data after 10 years, you will be doing unjustice. Okay? So we have to see how long can we use that data, and ask the participants, and then storing of the personal data. How are we going to store that personal data? आपने उनको तो कहते हैं participants को that you will be taking care of privacy and confidentiality, but that data is available in your library. That data is available in your office, where your research assistants, where your TAs or any other faculty members have free access. So that is not good that somebody else uses that data. ठीक है, यहाँ पे अभी मैं एक और बताऊँ, storage of personal data. Although this was not the personal data, somebody brought a letter of acceptance. In those days, AGC would accept, and some universities would accept a letter of acceptance of publication. So people used to get the letter from the journal कि आपका paper accept हो गया है और उनको degree award कर दी जाती है. Somebody got that letter, and later there was some issue. But it was found out, जो एडिटर साहब थे, उन्होंने कहा कि मैंने कोई लेटर किसी भी नहीं किया.
Letter and got it.
Somebody got that letter.
Now what do you say about
There
it?
was some issue.
Letter is the real example that I'm giving. Now what do you say about it? What do you say about it? Okay. Then we have the responsibility for avoiding harm. That because you have shared your data, so आपको harm नहीं होगा, आपको कोई नुकसान नहीं. आपकी क्लासरूम टीचिंग मैंने रिकॉर्ड कर ली है, ये नहीं कि आप HOD को जाकर कहोगे कि सर को ये पढ़ा, जाके वाइस चांसलर साहब से कहेंगे कि ये सर ने तो ये पढ़ा. योर पर्पस इज डिफरेंट. आप तो वहाँ पे लैंग्वेज के ऊपर रिसर्च कर रहे हो, आप उसके ऊपर रिसर्च नहीं कर रहे हैं क्या कह रहे हैं कि इस तरह बिहेव कर रहे हैं. That's not your responsibility. So we have to use the data only for the purpose that we have collected. Then respect for the third parties. If there are third parties involved, you have to keep their safety into consideration. अगर आपका डेटा is based on children, स्कूल के ऊपर बच्चों पे लर्निंग के ऊपर लर्निंग एक्विजिशन के ऊपर फर्स्ट लैंग्वेज लर्निंग सेकंड लैंग्वेज लर्निंग we have to collect data या आप किसी भी स्कूल में जाके कर रहे हैं या घर में कर रहे हैं या बच्चों से डेटा कलेक्ट कर रहे हैं तो you have to protect those children. ये बहुत ज़रूरी है these days data videos of children they are available in abundance on social media. Please be very careful कि बच्चे हैं इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि आप फॉरवर्ड कर सकते हैं बच्चे की चाहे उसमें कोई नर्सरी राइम है या जो भी चीज़ है child is telling a story. You have to protect children. You have to be extra careful. It should be used only for your research. और ये ना हो कि 5 साल के बाद वो बच्चे की वीडियो या वो बच्चे का डेटा या एक्सेंट के ऊपर आप काम कर रहे हैं and that बच्चा has become an English teacher. आप उसको दिखा रहे हैं ये देखो जी तुमने 5th grade में ऐसे अंग्रेजी बोली तुम्हारा तो एक्सेंट ये था. इसी तरह से रिस्पेक्ट फॉर द फैमिली लाइफ. आपको पता है वेस्ट में तो मेडिकल फाइल्स मेडिकल डिटेल्स आर नॉट शेयर्ड इवन विद फैमिली मेंबर्स. आपकी बीमारी के बारे में आपके बहन भाइयों को आपके पेरेंट्स को नहीं बताया जाता. इट्स योर ओन. If you allow, if you give the consent, only then your family will know about your illness. चाहे वो ये नहीं है कि सिर्फ कोई बहुत fatal disease है तो ही confidential होगा. वो any disease, all your medical record is confidential. तो उसके ऊपर हमें देखना है. Again, values and then we should also keep in mind what could be the motives of others. Again, no motive may be good possibly, but when it is shared with others, we do not know, so we cannot fully correct. Then, if you are using the data of people who are dead, who have left this world, then again, we should be responsible, we should be respectful, we should be very careful what we say and how to respect that. Then defining roles. What are our roles? What are our participants' roles? And to what extent are there requirements? What are the expectations? इसी तरह से respect for the group, not only for the individuals, but respect for the groups, respect for the institutions, respect for public administration. Sometimes we use data which is public data. हमने language analysis करना है, we go to the banks or get their data or electricity. LDA के पास जा रहे हैं, CT के पास जा रहे हैं. So we have to respect that. If somebody doesn't give the data, तो आप नहीं कि आपने जाके press conference में show. So we have to ethical there too. Respect for the vulnerable groups. Vulnerable groups include even women and cases, children, transgender. All those people who do not have the power, who could easily be exploited. So if we are using the data let's say I give you an example. One of my students had studied autism. So she collected data from children in an autism center.
and co-authors. There was a time when Dr. Tariq Rahman and I were discussing, and Dr. Tariq Rahman, you must have seen all his publications are single author publications. So in those days, people would work alone. That was the culture, individual, academic. Dr. Tariq Rahman has spent hours and hours and days and weeks in libraries sitting alone. Current University keeping on libraries. But then life changed. When we say world is a global village, so interaction बढ़ेगा, communication बढ़ेगा, we came closer. We are close. There are people online with us. There are people who come. Travel has become easier. Communication has become easier. Technology ने हमें सबको close कर. So the authorship or research, that also changed from individual research or from individual work. People started collaborating, people started working together. However, as I said, that there are, let's say,
five, six, seven, eight authors in one paper, then the contribution of all those authors should be just.
Is that paper worth it? के ऊपर 7-8 लोगों ने जब के काम किया, ऐसा क्या काम था जिसमें 1 या 2 लोगों की बजाय 10 लोगों की जरूरत पड़ी? So what is that? Co-authorship. Researchers must observe good publication practice, respect the contributions of other researchers. Sometimes we do not include a person's name in the publication. This would be other way too. Sometimes we include the names. On authorship के लिए, the researcher must have made a substantial contribution to the conception, design, or data acquisition, or data analysis and interpretation. ये नहीं कि पेपर लिख लिया था और इसकी फीस देनी है तो चले कि आपका नाम डाल देते हैं थोड़ा सा शेयरिंग हो जाए. The researcher must have contributed to drafting the manuscript or critical revision of intellectual content of the publication. And the researcher must have approved the final version before the publication.
Final version before the publication. These days we have seen cases that अभी एक चल रहा था पाकिस्तान में एक वाइस चांसलर साहब का केस हुआ plagiarism. He says my co-authors and papers plagiarized something. That case is still going on. So it is the right of every co-author to look at something that is say anything which I don't agree to it, and that goes with my name. So the researchers must approve the final version, and they must accept the responsibility and be accountable for the work as well. एक जगह मैंने देखा वाइस चांसलर ने कहा कि जी ये पेपर आपका ये था वो था. वो असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर से साहब और उन्होंने फौरन बदल लिया अपना स्टांस. पहले उन्होंने वो पेपर प्रेजेंट किया कि दिस इज माय पेपर, फिर उन्होंने कहा नहीं वो तो मेरी स्टूडेंट थी और इसका पेपर है उसने छाप दिया मेरा नाम. No, if your paper is there, then you are accountable. You are responsible. Plagiarism, we all know about plagiarism. I will not say much. It's not just about copying the words. It's not just about citations, citations. It's about the idea. It's about the concept. It's about the theory. It's about the vision. It's about the data. It's about the methodology. आप कॉपी कर रहे हैं किसी का
Now, this is something which is going on with Turkey in Pakistan student-supervisor relationship. There are students who would publish their PhD or MPhil work without including the name of their supervisor. As a student's team, they are petty and then there are supervisors who would force the students to write their name as the first one. नहीं तुम्हें ही पब्लिश करना है और तुम्हें इसमें से 10 पेपर पब्लिश करने हैं या जिंदगी भर जो भी पब्लिश करोगे उसमें मेरा नाम है सुपरवाइजर आपके साथ और सारी उम्र सुपरवाइजर का नाम है फर्स्ट ऑथराइजर स्टूडेंट दिखाया सेकंड ऑथराइजर. So this is a very tricky thing, student-supervisor relationship. कहाँ पे supervisor का contribution ज़्यादा है, कहाँ पे उसको first author होना है, कहाँ कम है, कहाँ equal है. We have to look at all these things very clear, in part, objective. इसी तरह से project managers हैं, supervisors हैं, अगर आप research project कर रहे हो तो उनकी responsibilities क्या हैं. अब project managers में एक supervisor, let's say I'm running a project, okay, a research project पे मैं काम कर रही हूँ, I'm a principal investigator,
and my TI publishes a paper from my project data and does not include my name but includes somebody else's name. अब ये जो बातें मैं कह रही हूँ ये हो रही, this is reality. Okay, so this is highly unethical. If I'm the I'm the principal investigator in the project, and that data is used for publication. Somebody else's name is mentioned there. It has nothing to do with that project. That is highly unethical. ये तो पाकिस्तान है, यहाँ बहुत सारी चीजों को इग्नोर करते थे, but if it were in the West, there could be a serious inquiry about it. People can lose their jobs for doing such things. Commission research को जिसमें somebody pays for that. Let's say British Council कहती है कि ये research article, American Embassy कहती है ये research, that is commission. We have to be very careful if somebody is giving money, if somebody is giving grant, if this is a research for the British Council and they have an interest to say कि उर्दू नहीं पढ़ाई जानी चाहिए, अंग्रेजी पढ़ानी चाहिए, let's suppose. तो मुझे अपनी रिसर्च के जवाब में यही फाइंडिंग्स that would be unethical.
Working for an agenda which is not truly research based. That's a pre-planned agenda. So even for the commission research, we should be very clear that this will be methodology and this is the data and these are the results. We cannot be subjective in interpretations and findings. So there should be transparency in research funding. बहुत सारे projects में लिखा नहीं जाता, papers में लिखा नहीं जाता that this paper was, this research was funded this way. So we should mention that it was funded research. And when you have a project, when you have commissioned research, or when it is agency funded, or World Bank funded, UNESCO funded, if community funding not here, you have a right and duty to publish. But that should be written in the proposal also. ये नहीं कि आपने रिसर्च कर दिया और उसके बाद आपका ग्रांटर कह रहा है कि नहीं इसको तो आप पब्लिश नहीं कर सकते. So there are, and I think this all research will be published, उसको पहले से proposal में डाल देना. So this is also about dissemination of research. So quickly, research ethics is based on honesty, objectivity, integrity, carefulness, openness, respect for intellectual property, confidentiality, and responsible publication. Then responsible mentoring is very important. Whether you are principal investigator, whether you are HOD, whether you are the dean, whether you are a senior colleague, mentoring is very important, and this is your social responsibility as well. And then non-discriminatory attitude, non-discriminatory behavior. Competence, obviously, there's nothing without the competence. Legality, that's very important. We should know the rules. We should know the university rules. Sometimes the university appoints to issue the offer letter that you don't read. And it is written that all the publications will be the copyright of the university. So we should be careful. Is this your do you have mutual ownership, or is it the university, which is who is the sole owner of your intellectual property? So this is the intellectual property frankly, very carefully, openly. Okay? Who earns? Let's say if it's a university project or उस project से आप सिर्फ publication ही नहीं करते, उस publication के ऊपर आपको award मिलता है. Who gets the money for it? उस
publication के ऊपर you get another project. वो university आपको नहीं देती किसी.
You have to be very open about, very frank about these things. Informed consent rules, we have already talked to you about that, confidentiality, and the limits of confidentiality. कि कहाँ तक मैं आपको चीज़ों को इनको confidential रख सकती हूँ, और कहाँ तक नहीं रख सकती. Getting consent on
practical measures. Authorship के ऊपर authorship misconduct में ghost author होता है. A ghost author is a person who is paying a substantial contribution to the research or writing of the manuscript, but is not named as an.
आप किसी से काम तो करवा लेते हैं, लेकिन उसका नाम एज the co-author नहीं लिखते. Okay. Contributor, anyone who has contributed in your research. Sometimes you go and get SPSS analysis by somebody else, it's yours,
help me, ombudsman help me, assist me, data collection with me, or somebody contributed his or her data. So they are all contributors and we should write data collection with me, or somebody contributed his or everybody's name cannot be there as contributors.
All those people who have helped you, their names should be acknowledged in the acknowledgement research paper में भी acknowledge करें. Then these days, I'm sorry, I'm taking more time than
assignments.
Open access journals, publication. These days we have a lot of talk about open access journals. Why are they becoming popular? Because they are easy to get access, they are available online, and they publish more frequently. But we have to again monitor, we have to be careful in finding a good open access journal. A journal which is not fake, a journal which is not bogus, a journal that does not publish because it gets money. These days this is very common. We see people paying in dollars just to get published. At times you pay heavy amounts and अपनी तरफ से आप अगर मंदी भी करते हैं, आप चेक कर लेते हैं एचईसी की लिस्ट में है, एचईसी की लिस्ट में है, आपने $500 दे दिए, आपने 5 ऑथर्स भी बना लिए, डोनेशंस कर दी, पेपर पब्लिश कर दिया, 5 लोगों को क्रेडिट भी मिल गया. 4-5 महीने के बाद पता चलता है कि एचईसी ने तो वो जर्नल लिस्ट से निकाल दिया. अब क्या करें? ये पहले सोचते हैं कि जो जर्नल आपसे सिर्फ पैसे लेके पब्लिश कर रहा है, उसको आपने पूछना भी है कि नहीं भेजना, आप अपना अच्छा पेपर क्यों जारी करते हैं. So how do you check? You check in the directory of open access journals, which is called RICOLLAC. उसमें आप चेक करें और उसमें देखें कि वो open access journal listed है या नहीं है. Then you check whether the journal is indexed in the major databases. These include Thomson Reuters, Scoopers, ISI index. ये सारे आप check कर लें and go direct to that website. Do not go to the journal website. आजकल it's easy to make a website. It's very easy to make a fake website. वो आप उस journal की website पे नहीं जाएं, आप database पे जाएं और वहाँ से search करें. And then you see who are the people. I can tell you the regular issues. कुछ चैनल में कल छपने शुरू किए, तो they can see what are they doing. और उसके साथ आप देखें do they have who are the editors of that journal, कौन लोग. कल परसों किसी जगह इंटरव्यूज थे और वहाँ पे मैंने देखा कि बंदे ने अपने स्लाइड के ऊपर प्रेजेंटेशन में लिखा हुआ को-एडिटर ऑफ कॉर्पोरेट. मैंने पूछा कि क्या है. Technically, Corporation is a journal corpus linguistics published by a university. बस ये मुझे पता है, I'm the editor of that journal. लेकिन जो आपने co-editor लिखा है, ये क्या है? मेरे पास तो ऐसी कोई पोजीशन ही नहीं है. मैंने आज तक किसी को co-editor नहीं रखा. We have the managing editor, तो हमारे अपने लोग हैं. आप co-editor कैसे? वो पता चला उनको, और मुझे भी पता था कि we had sent a paper for review. He was one of the reviewers. Then being a reviewer is something different from being a co-editor of a journal. इतनी बड़ी चीज लिखते हैं. Again, you can lose your job, you can lose your credibility. इस तरह की चीजें करने से. So coming back to see the journal, उसको editorial board देखने की कौन लोग हैं उसमें. Sometimes
लोग होते हैं. एक बंदा जो है वो बैठा हुआ है चिचिटी मलिया में, एक बंदा बैठा हुआ है श्रीलंका में, कनाडा में, साउथ अफ्रीका में, और वो जर्नल चल रहा है ऑनलाइन. एक बंदा बैठा हुआ है चिचिटी में. बहुत सारे एड्रेस मिल जाएंगे आपको, पता भी होगा जर्नल चल रहा है. Then the editorial scope क्या है, आउटलाइन क्या है, ये रिव्यू का प्रोसेस है. एड्रेस मिल जाएंगे आपको, पता भी होगा. उनके अगर आप इवैल्यूएशन दें, then the editorial scope बोर्ड देखें, ये रिव्यू ये प्रोसेस है. एड्रेस मिल जाएंगे आपको. If the report is evaluation, then say much other than page number 2 that you guys
can have an excellent paper in the proceedings of the exam. So look at the paper, look for the quality of the paper, look for your own satisfaction, integrity, credibility. I think that's all I have to say. And even if you have a small plant,
go for that. That will become tree, but it has to be an original plant. Don't go for the fake plants. Don't go for the plastic. Go for that. That tree, but it has to be original. Don't pay for the fake.
Thank you very much for your talk. Now the house is open for Q&A session. Any questions from the audience?
Don't pay for
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your talk. It was great to have you on the house. I appreciate this. Most of the soldiers.
So because our education system bases upon colloquialism, examination system, it might be exceptional cases. But when a judge starts research, he is told that colloquialism is not allowed. So what are your suggestions there about the change of examination system? And one thing, the relationship between supervisor and researcher. Do you think that the relationship is according to the international
standard, or where the researcher is treated as a slave? So there is instead of a student and teacher relationship, there is a master and slave relationship, and how it can be amended or made better. Thank you.
जी, plagiarism के लिए, this doesn't happen in a day. It's the lifelong learning. I don't want to share my personal example, but my kids studied in the American school, and at the elementary school, primary school, जिसको कहते हैं, they had the library hour and they had to go to the library, और वहाँ पे 4th grade में they had to write the author's name. They had to see the books. Author का नाम भी लिखना है, उसके publisher भी लिखना है, उसकी pictures साथ दी जाती थी. I mean, at that time. So that begins from the very beginning. That's the cultural thing. हम तो गालिब के शेर को अपना शेर कह के, आजकल इकबाल के शेर, इकबाल डे था, and all types of poetry was ascribed to इकबाल, जो इकबाल ने कभी, तो हम तो वो लोग हैं ना जो हर किसी का शेर अपने नाम से करते हैं. So this is the beginning of the beginning. I mean, from the earlier years, हमने सीख लिया, ठीक है, we, our generation, we have learned that this has been a bad practice. So I think tomorrow's generation should be taken care. वो हमारी responsibility है कि उनको दुनिया में ethical guidelines provide हम करें. तो plagiarism ऐसे नहीं है, अब लिखना नहीं आता इसलिए कॉपी कर देते हैं. That's simple. Copy paste. टेक्नोलॉजी ने और भी मामला आसान कर दिया. आपने थीसिस कहीं साउथ अफ्रीका का लिया और उसको यहाँ से पेस्ट कर दिया, ना आपके सुपरवाइजर ने वो पढ़ा हुआ था ना आपने. तो उसके लिए जो अगेन दिस इज रिलेटेड टू supervisor and supervisee relationship. You need to meet your supervisee frequently. Whether this is at the undergrad level, आप final year project करवा रहे हैं, आप class project करवा रहे हैं, और MPhil और PhD. If you have the regular meetings, आपके साथ आपका supervisee, आपका student discuss करता है project, class project आके discuss करता है, data discuss करता है, आपको पता है कि उसने किस की recording कर ली है, किसका interview कर लिया है, क्या methodology है. If you know exactly, and if the student brings the write-up to you and you are correcting, you are reading it on regular basis, then obviously there is very, very minimal chance of plagiarism. My supervisor for my PhD research was John Strales at the University of Michigan. And I still have his handwritten notes, the editing that he did on my work. वो मैंने अभी भी संभाल के रखी है. That's so precious for me. So if you have that professional relationship, ये नहीं हो कि जब supervisors कह रहे हैं कि मेरे घर के काम करो, मेरी गाड़ी ड्राइव करो. I've seen one person. बहुत सारी examples हैं. It's pathetic. दिल दुखता है जब supervisors treat their supervisors like slaves, जो आप कह रहे हैं. And I think every individual should be treated with respect, with honor. उसको आप सिखाएंगे तो आपकी अपनी publication, आपकी credibility increase होगी. And supervisor will learn, supervisor will do quality work, supervisor will do quality work. I hope that answers. Gee, anyone else?
Dr. Sabha, thank you very much for this insightful talk. Obviously, there were a lot of things we learned and got revised in our mind also. Not a question, frankly speaking, just a quick comment from your side. That's what I would like to. Don't you think that this sad state of affairs in our research ethical side is the kind of reflection of overall sad state of moral standards in our society, which we try to do things in other spheres of life. And I sometimes feel we have to probably boost up our general academic standards to make people realize that probably education is a noble thing and research is even a nobler thing to do, and only suitable people, not only in qualification but in their attitude. Why suitable people should come forward and do this task. And since we systematically have failed to make this job what it is supposed to be, and that's probably one of the reasons behind this sad story. Just a quick comment from your side. Thank you.
जी डॉक्टर साहब, that's actually sad. दिल दुखता है ये बातें करते हुए, and I didn't want to use the term which has been there in my mind for a very long time. जब टीवी के ऊपर, मीडिया के ऊपर पूरे पाकिस्तान में एक फाइनेंशियल करप्शन के ऊपर, पहले टेररिज्म पे काम हुआ, फिर कहा गया कि जी फाइनेंशियल करप्शन के ऊपर काम हो, उसके साथ एकेडमिक करप्शन, I call it academic corruption. Unfortunately, one way or another, directly or indirectly, covertly or overtly, थोड़ा सा पोषण हो या ज़्यादा हो, we've all been affected. And you are very right, this is part of the society. इसीलिए टीचर की रिस्पेक्ट कम हो गई है सोसाइटी में. सेमेस्टर सिस्टम में वैसे ही बच्चे को पता ही नहीं होता सेमेस्टर में किसने पढ़ा. I've asked this question many times कि बेटा आपको ये कोर्स कौन से टीचर ने पढ़ा? जी पता नहीं, कोई मेल थे या फीमेल थी, कोई मैडम थी, नाम तक नहीं याद होता. सो टीचर की इज्जत को खत्म करने या कम करने के जिम्मेदार हम खुद हैं. So I think this is high time that we should accept that we have done wrong. हम सब मुजरिम हैं उसमें, but हम ही को ठीक करना है. Again, this is our realization is the half of the problem solved. So it's time to join hands to realize that our society, our children, they have to be saved. इससे पहले कि our children, our youth, they lose trust in us completely. कि नहीं भी तो corrupt generation थी, इनको तो छोड़ ही दें. उससे पहले we should take some minds. Or yes, I tell all my faculty members as dean for 6 years, I've been telling them कि जब भी आप क्लास में जाएं, so at least spend 5-10 minutes, 5 minutes to zarur talk to them about general ethics, general morality. ये वही बात है असल में. यहाँ बैठे उमर साहब भी और दूसरे लोग भी जो हज उम्रा के लिए गए, हमने वहाँ देखा कि आप अल्लाह के घर में हज पे जा रहे, जो which is the biggest इबादत है ना, हाईएस्ट लेवल के ऊपर और वहाँ हम हजर अस्वद के लिए ये तवाफ के वक्त या हम दूसरे लोगों को धक्के दे रहे हो, we push people aside कि मैं हाथ लगा, मैं आगे नहीं बढ़। अब वहाँ पे there's a conflict between your religious beliefs and morality, ethics. इस दूसरे बंदे को धक्का देना क्या है? आपने तवाफ किया, आपने हज किया, आप समझ रहे हैं आप जन्नत में चले जाएंगे, और उस दूसरे आदमी को धक्का देने से क्या? तो ये चीजें हैं. Yes, we have to talk to our children, we have to talk to society, we have to talk to the parents, colleagues. एक दूसरे से बात करें और देखें जितनी भी एथिकल गाइडलाइंस हैं हर डिपार्टमेंट की, हर प्रोग्राम की लिखी जानी चाहिए. I've used these from Norwegian Medical Association or APA से और MLA से, but every university should have its own guidelines, ethical guidelines. हर डिपार्टमेंट की, हर डिसिप्लिन वाइज भी डिफरेंट होगी. They should be written down, they should be communicated. It should not be like harassment policy, ये गवर्नमेंट ने तो बना दी, but nobody knows what is that. So ethical guidelines, ethical policy that should be available to all the students, all the faculty, all the administration, and to the staff as well. जो staff आपके ऑफिस में काम करता है, चाहे वो TAs हैं, चाहे वो research assistants हैं, नायब कासिद हैं, office boys हैं, everyone should know the ethical policy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Prophet. It was really a wonderful talk, and you have enlightened our mental horizon, and you have very well discussed the relationship between supervisor and supervisor. So, selecting a supervisor is more important than selecting your life partner. Well, so I would like to call our next worthy speaker, Professor Dr. Umar Farooq, Department of English, Capital University of Science and Technology, Islamabad. His research topic is web-based teaching education program in Pakistan. Prof. Dr. Umar Farooq, please come on the stage.
Thank you very much. By the way, it's lunchtime, isn't it?
So Prof, you can quench your intellectual thirst first.
All right, so don't worry, I'll be brief, and because Dr. Habibullah has already discussed a lot about the technology and education, so I need to skip a few slides as well. All right. All right, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm really happy to be here, and it's my pleasure. I'm really impressed by the arrangements that the Riphah University has made for this conference. I'm going to talk about web-based teacher education programs in Pakistan. Just a little bit focus on the technology and education, and then I'll move in towards teacher education, and then I'm just discuss a case of Allama Iqbal University. So it's the very broad picture has already been presented by Dr. Habibullah about the technology use in education. So I'm just focusing on one specific aspect, the available infrastructure in Pakistan, and how can we use that infrastructure for teacher education in Pakistan. So this is basically my theme. Now, there are challenges in the field of education, as we know, even before the COVID and after the COVID. So there were a lot of challenges that we are facing in education sector, and especially in teacher education. There are different ways to deal with such kind of problems and issues, but one of main answer to these issues, what I think is the use of the technology, the last point of using technologies appropriately to enrich teaching and sport practices. So how can we use technology in teacher education programs, or how can we offer web-based teacher education programs? What are the problems? What are the issues the teachers who are enrolled in such programs they're facing at the moment? So teacher, as is one of the UNESCO reports basically, and the teacher have invariably lagged behind in developing core competence fundamental to their profession. So these are comments, and it covers a lot of other aspects as well, other than the technology. It deals with the curriculum, the study material, the teaching learning environment, and the technology as well. So I'm just focusing on one point, and there are three. Basically, the first is the current curriculum, and we know the way it has been designed and it is practiced. And the last point, the material that we use in our courses. But the most important is that the familiarity with the use of modern information and communication technology is also not given due importance. So this is one of the issues that has already been discussed by Dr. Bibullah, and I'm going to focus on the same as well. On the other side, let's have a quick look at the education policies. So how far that we have discussed the use of technology in the education policies. So far, there are 17, but rather I think the latest one introduced by the present government. So there are 18 education policies that have been introduced so far. But mostly, they haven't discussed the use of technology in teacher education programs, except one of the policies that was in 1992. So in that national education policy, which says that we should use the technology in teacher education programs, especially because the teacher makes one of the largest population in the professional in Pakistan. It's more than 1 million, or maybe it's increasing every day. Even there are certain points which have been highlighted in the National Education Policy Review back in 2017. It's an old reference, but it's very important to mention here. That's the inability of the system to attract or retain quality human resource to teaching and good quality teacher training. So this is the problem that we usually have the teacher training institutes, all right? And then retaining the quality teachers at these institutes as well. Now, let's have a quick look at the teacher education institutes in Pakistan. So there are 278 across the Pakistan, so keeping in all the provinces and the part of FANA and AJK as well. So we have in total 278 teacher education institutes. And this is the male and female teacher training institutes. So you can just have a quick look at that, the male 47, female, so specifically for female 55 and both 176, so making the total 278 across the country. But most of, not most of them, some of them have already been upgraded as the universities of education in different parts of the world, right? So in Pakistan. Now, teacher education. So we can see that there is a tremendous growth in the use of technology in educational institutions, especially in the universities and in the teacher education institutes as well. We know the benefits of the technology because it has changed the concepts. But now here, let's shift from the traditional teacher training institutes to the distance teacher training institutes as well. So there is one of that I would like to mention here is the Allama Iqbal Open University, which is offering different kind of teacher training programs, starting from the PTCT, which is already abandoned, but the B.Ed, M.Ed, and the other program as well. And specifically for English language teachers, there is a diploma and the master degree in TEFL at the university. Now, in the distance education institution, if we have a look at the evolution of the distance education in Pakistan, so it started with the print-based books, all right? So sending the books to the students across the country and the assignments and question papers, and that's all. But now they have shifted some of the content online. During the pandemic and after the pandemic, they are going to continue with the web-based programs as well. But even in these programs, there are certain restrictions as well. Usually what do they send? They send the books, online books, or they share the scanned books online. And the students or the trainee teachers, they have to download those books and they have to go through those books and they have to write the assignment. So there is no change specifically in sending the books in print or just uploading them on the university website. But there is increasing number of public sector universities which are using the technology, as we have already observed in Dr. Vipulla's presentations, that there are hybrid programs now. So part of the program is being offered on campus and the part of the programs is being online. The same case is with the teacher training programs. Now, there are different studies that have been conducted across the world. So again, referring to a UNESCO report. So in, for example, the UK, China, Brazil, India, Egypt, and South Africa. So there are different kind of projects that have been taken. And they, just like the TV, Futura, or the Indira Gandhi University, they're offering the web-based programs as well. And the China television, even in Pakistan, during the pandemic, there was an educational TV which was launched, but that was only for the students, not for the teacher training programs. After going through these case studies, so basically they focus on three main points. Conventional teacher education institution cannot meet the demand, of course, because their number is increasing, and on the other hand, the number of the teacher education institutes is limited. So naturally, we have to move to the distance education or the web-based education programs. So the population of the teacher training institutes or the teacher training teachers, they belong to the rural, the urban area. So the problem is with that, the far-flung areas where we have to reach out through the web. Beside these teacher training institutes, there are a lot of projects have been introduced by different institutions and different organizations as well. Just like the British Council and Higher Education Commission and the other. For example, let me just refer to one of the projects that was introduced by the Higher Education Commission back in 2005, that was framing a committee on English, all right? And under that committee, there were certain projects for teacher training. So within the Pakistan and outside the Pakistan as well. And even the British Council has sponsored a lot of projects as well, and other donor agencies also. Now, the third aspect of this presentation is what our national IT policy says. So the teacher training institutes, the web-based teacher training programs, and the technology. So basically the national IT policy, which says that it must be effectively leveled to deliver high quality teaching and research support in higher education, both on campus and using distance education. So it's the responsibility of the IT institution, especially the telecommunication, PTA, to provide all the facilities to the educational institution, whether they are on campus or whether they are offering web-based programs. But to what extent they are supporting such programs, so this is what I'm going to discuss in the next few slides. So the researcher teachers and additional television channels should be dedicated to the delivery of high quality distance education program. But unfortunately, we don't have. I still remember that Allama Iqbal Open University applied for the lessons for educational TV long ago, but they haven't got it yet. On the other hand, yes, the virtual university is there, but they are offering programs in different disciplines, but not for the teacher education programs. About the infrastructure for online education. So the following that IT policy, which says that the free lease line internet access to the public sector university would be provided under that license. But I think it is still a process, and I'm not sure about that, whether such lease lines have been provided to the university or not. And the bandwidth would be provided by the ISP, and the PTCL would provide locally connectivity. So again, this is the responsibility of the PTA to provide a proper infrastructure for the web-based programs. Now, let's have a look at some of the facilities that have been provided by the PTA or the internet connectivity. So the internet connectivity has been provided to more than 2,389 cities, and it is increasing. All right, so mostly in the Punjab. Right? But only there are 151 cities which have been provided internet connectivity in Pakistan. So again, there is a disparity between different provinces. Now, this is the mobile broadband and the fixed line, all right? So the infrastructure, so let's talk about in 2016, so it was 44%, but in October 2020, it has reached to the 90%. So there are an increase in the broadband customers as well. And the second thing is the availability of the broadband. So it has also increased from 16 to 20. So from, you can see that from 22% to 42%, so 47%. So it's as 42% in 2020. So over the time, basically the PTA is providing all these facilities, and it is increasing every year. Now that was the PTA, all right? Now this is the data that I have collected from an international organization, so International Telecommunication Union. So this is the infrastructure about for online education in Pakistan. So the network coverage is almost 89%. So it means that we may offer, or we can try to offer such kind of courses across the country. Even the mobile phone ownership is 45%, and the other, you can see the facilities that are available. But the important thing is here, which I want to focus, is basically the trained people in ICT. The trend says that there are only 4% of the total population. I'm just skipping a few slides basically to coming to that point actually. There are only 4% of the population with the individual with basic skills, but there is just 1% of the population which is highly skilled in IT skills. So this is very alarming, and which needs that we need to focus on the basic skills of the teachers, especially in technology, in the use of technology. So basically this provides the overall structure of the basic facilities which have been provided by the PTA in Pakistan. Even the use of the mobile phones, so we can see that mostly it is used by the youth. So you can see the 19% is from the age group 15 to 24. So it means that we can avail this opportunity, because most of the youth, they use the mobile phones and internet as well. So they are the university students. So we can use such kind of facilities in a proper way. Now, this is basically the third part of my presentation. So basically, I selected a group of teachers, the training teachers, which were enrolled in Diploma TEFL program at Allama Iqbal University. And basically, the focus was just to know the problem they are facing and what are the expectations. So there is a difference between expectations and what's going on. There were 664 teachers which were selected for this survey, and it was basically a very simple survey. You can say the Likert scale survey, and what the responses we have got. But before that, while selecting that population, so there were certain options or the parameters which were kept in mind, and those were basically the desire to get higher education, educational background, and the basic computer skills. So these three qualities were kept in mind while selecting that sample. Now, what was the responses? And this is basically the urban and the rural. There were 47% male, sorry, for 52% female, and the urban population was almost 70%. So again, coming back to, because most of the technological facilities are available in urban areas, so that's also creates a problem for the teachers which are living or which belongs to the rural area. So there are 30% only teachers which belong to the rural area. Age group, you can see that the most of them were basically 21 to 30 years, 64% of the population. Again, the youth of this nation. Experience, so they have the experience 0 to 5 years, so 72% have computer and internet connectivity as well. Now, there were some certain basic questions that were asked to that specific group, right, about joining that MA-TEFL program. So, as a prerequisite of job, but there were 32% the people who disagreed to that one, that there was the prerequisite for job. It means that they want to improve their own professional skills, all right? So that's why they got admission in that specific program. Advantages, yes, everybody knows what are the advantages of a program which is web-based or offered through distance education. They can't afford admission in a regular teacher education program and can't leave the place of job. So these two options were there, but they were not so important for them. So what was important for them, it was to improve their professional skill while being at the job. Once they were enrolled at specific programs, so there were different options. So the first was the assignments and second was to attend the tutorial. So that was, again, they mentioned that there was a problem in attending the tutorial because for that they have to need the connectivity and some other problems so they faced in that specific program. Now this was important. This was really a serious which we need to focus on, that access to material and the resources. Though the university has uploaded the books, but there are other resources as well. And most of the teachers or the participants of this study, they disagreed that the latest material in libraries to prepare assignments, so there are 64%, they disagreed to that point. Naturally, they don't have the access to the libraries, online libraries especially. And then the latest material libraries to prepare research projects and the presentation, again 55 or 56%, they disagreed to that point. And so these were some problems that they mentioned, availability of the resources. Now, this is basically, we know, everybody knows what is the benefits of the internet in learning process. So I'm not going to discuss the advantages. Yes, there are a lot of advantages of the web-based education or the internet in teacher training programs. Right? And e-learning and traditional distance education system, so they preferred basically the e-learning system or the web-based system for their professional enhancement. Now, basically this, coming to the last slide, this is the conclusion of basically the presentation, that teachers, they do realize the importance of the professional development and the technology as well. So the technology can help to improve or to enhance their professional skill. And there is a flexibility in the web-based programs as compared to the traditional teacher development or teacher training programs. But now, what is the responsibility of the two organizations, which I think really important, is the PTA and the HEC. Now, PTA should provide a proper infrastructure to all the educational, especially the teacher training institutes across the country to offer the web-based program, because at the moment, there is just one university, that's Alame College University, that's offering the web-based teacher education programs. There is no other one. The other ones may come forward, but if they are provided with some infrastructure which is really necessary for the teacher training programs, not only to the institutes, but to the teachers as well, whether they are living in the cities or whether they are in the rural area, and especially focusing on the rural area. So they must be provided some technological support and accessibility to technology. The HEC can help such kind of institutes to enhance the infrastructure, or maybe in terms of the academic input to enhance the professional skills of the teachers. And the availability of the online study material, this is one of the important issues that needs to be addressed, because the institutes which needs or which desire to offer the web-based programs, naturally they enhance such kind of capabilities through the available infrastructure. It was very brief, very focused to the point, and just want to save some time actually before the lunch, because you are just waiting for the lunch and looking a bit tired as well. So it was a quick presentation actually. And most of the points were already covered by Dr. Habibullah regarding the technology used in education. So I was a bit fast, and I just focused on some of the important points of the study. Right. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear Prof. And now the house is open for a question and answer session. Well, from my side, dear Prof, what could be the future application of web-based technology or teaching in Pakistani context? Yeah.
Sorry again.
Yeah. What could be future implication of web-based teaching in Pakistani context?
Yes, but I think what has already been experienced during the COVID, so the future is there, and we cannot deny the use of technology in education. It's there and it will be. So we must be ready for that. And the problem is that with the basic infrastructure and the training the teachers, all right? So how to use the technology, how to design the material for online sessions, all right, or online teaching. So I think the technology is going to stay with us. So we must use the technology in future for all kind of programs, especially when we talk about the teacher education and other programs.
Thank you very much, Prof. for such a wonderful talk. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time you have been waiting for many times. And please move on the lunch. The lunch is ready and we'll meet after the lunch.